Today, we're going to talk about one of the biggest medical breakthroughs of the last 30 years. It's a story that starts with a total mystery and ends with what some scientists have called a biological cheat code against heart disease. It's an amazing tale, so let's get right into it.
Just think about that for a second. What if there was a single switch inside our bodies? And if we could just find a way to flip it off, we could protect ourselves from the #1 killer on the planet. It sounds like pure science fiction, right? Well, this exact question is what launched a full-blown revolution in medicine.
So our story kicks off in the late 1990s, and it doesn't start in some fancy high-tech lab, but with a really baffling medical puzzle that had researchers completely stumped. Over in Paris, a geneticist named Catherine Bullion was studying a family with a terrifying problem. Their levels of LDL, the bad cholesterol that gums up your arteries, were through the roof. We're talking people having heart attacks before they even turned 50. But here's the weird part. All the known genes that cause this kind of thing, they were perfectly normal. Something else was going on here, something nobody had ever seen before. Now here's where it gets interesting. At the exact same time, thousands of miles away in Montreal, another scientist, Nabil Sida, was just doing his job cataloging this obscure family of proteins. One of them had this really boring name, NRC1, and nobody knew what it did, but he knew exactly where to find it in our DNA. And the crazy part? Both of these teams, totally unaware of each other, were looking at the very same spot in the human genome.
Look, the road from that initial mystery to an actual working treatment was a long one. It took decades. It all started with that mystery family in the 90s. Then, in 2003, they finally pinpointed the gene. Just 2 years later, its incredible power was discovered, which led to these huge clinical trials that proved, this could actually stop heart attacks.
So let's talk about that big aha moment. The point where these two completely separate lines of research suddenly smashed into each other and cracked the whole thing wide open.
So the French team gets wind of the Montreal team's research. They immediately sequence that exact gene, NRC1, in their family. And bingo, there it was. A tiny, single change in the gene was sending the enzyme into overdrive. This was the smoking gun. They gave the gene a new name, PCSK9. And all of a sudden, a brand new major player in the cholesterol game was on the board.
But believe it or not, that was only half the picture. To get the other half, we've got to go to Texas. The Dallas Heart Study was just a brilliant idea. Let's get DNA from thousands of different people, and then let's match it up with their medical records to see if we can find any weird genetic patterns. And what they found was the genetic lottery ticket. See, the French family had a PCSK9 gene that was stuck in overdrive, giving them dangerously high cholesterol. But in Dallas, they found people with the exact opposite problem, a broken PCSK9 gene that didn't work at all. And the result? Their bad cholesterol was incredibly low, and they were almost totally protected from heart disease. This was it. This was the key insight. PCSK9 basically works like a master switch for cholesterol in your body.
Okay, so now the target was identified. The race was officially on. The thinking was, if you can just find a way to block this protein, you could basically copy the good luck that those people in Dallas were born with. But that was a massive, massive gamble.
Here's the problem. The target itself, this PCSK9 protein, is big and complicated. It's not like a simple little lock that you can design a small drug key for. No, for this, you needed a totally new approach. You needed something more like a custom-fit glove that could wrap around this big, complex hand and just shut it down. The answer was something called a monoclonal antibody.
Okay, let's quickly break down what this bad guy, PCSK9, actually does. So it's floating around in your blood, and it's basically a heat-seeking missile. Its target, these super important things on your liver called LDL receptors. Their job is to pull bad cholesterol out of your blood. But PCSK9 finds them, latches on, and destroys them. And, fewer receptors means more bad cholesterol stays in your blood. Simple as that. So the solution is actually pretty elegant. You inject this new drug, the monoclonal antibody, and it acts like a sponge, just mopping up all the PCSK9 in the bloodstream before it can get to the liver and cause any trouble. With PCSK9 neutralized, the LDL receptors are safe, and they can get back to their job of clearing out all that bad cholesterol.
So, did it work?
Oh yeah, the first results from the clinical trials were just mind-blowing. In some patients, their LDL cholesterol dropped by as much as 81%, and that was on top of the best statins we already had. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. There's a quote from one of the sources that just sums it up perfectly. For these patients who'd been fighting high cholesterol their whole lives, this drug behaved exactly like a biological cheat code.
But look, making a number go down on a lab report is one thing. That's great. But the real question, the one that really matters, is could this drug actually stop people from having heart attacks, from having strokes? Could it save lives?
So they ran a massive trial with over 27,000 people who had already had heart problems. And the results? A total home run. The drug cut major cardiovascular events by 15%, and the really bad stuff, heart attack, stroke, or death, by a whopping 20%. It was a massive victory.
But this success led to an even bigger, more important question. This is fantastic for people who are already sick, but could you use this to stop that first disaster from ever even happening? Could this be a tool for primary prevention? That was the Holy Grail.
Well, the answer finally came from a landmark trial called Vesalia-CV. After years of research, the data was in. And the top-line result? A stunning 25% reduction.
Let's just sit with that for a second. What that means is, for people who were at high risk but had never had a heart attack, this drug prevented 1 in 4 of those first-time catastrophic events from happening. The answer was a clear, definitive yes. So this gives us incredible proof that the science is solid. But it also opens up a whole new set of questions. Chief among them, how do we get this powerful treatment to more people who need it? Right now, the two biggest hurdles are how you take it and how much it costs. These drugs are expensive injections. But here's what's so exciting. Researchers are already testing a version you can take as a daily pill. If they can get a pill to deliver these same incredible results, that would be an absolute game changer, making it possible for so many more people to get this protection.
All right, so let's zoom out and recap. We've gone on this 30-year journey, from one family's medical mystery all the way to a proven, life-saving therapy. It's definitive proof that targeting just one single gene can have a massive, positive impact on health. And while the future looks like it might be a simple daily pill, we can never forget that all the foundational stuff, good diet, exercise, that stuff is and always will be critically important. And that leaves us with one last, huge idea to think about. What does our world look like when preventing the #1 cause of death becomes as easy as taking a pill with your morning coffee? The implications are just staggering. And honestly, we are just at the very beginning of this new chapter.